Good evening, good evening. I am Coach Mo. We're here with the Evening Social Podcast. The Evening Social Podcast is a platform that the Jegna Klub uses for their vision of creating a community of individuals with an entrepreneurial mindset that are economically independent, operating in harmony. So this platform here allows our students and families to help see people who come from their neighborhood, look like them, that are thriving in a professional manner. Tonight's episode is entitled, I Am What I Choose to Become. It's an honor to have the guest tonight, who is a daughter, a sister, a wife, a mother, a friend, an educator, and a principal. We have Miss Monica Randle.
Thank you. I feel privileged to be here, and this is exciting, good stuff. I'm excited.
Good, glad. I'm happy to have you. I must say this, part of the definition of the word Jegna, it is that you will be able to speak truth to power. And so that's what we're going to do this evening. Some people say it's hard conversations because we're going to talk about some things, being honest and moving forward. But in this conversation, I like to say that the conversation is not about us. It's about those who came before us and those who come after us. So we're honoring who helped us get here, but then we're also teaching those who are going to come after us. So
Awesome.
That's the conversation for tonight. So I start every show with something what we call our icebreaker or our fun questions. Just kind of shake it up just a little bit.
Okay.
All right. So I do have to put these on because sometimes it's
It's a part of my everyday all day. So
well, it's coming. I got an eye appointment coming up. It may be my everyday too. So with our first icebreaker, our fun questions, let's see. What period would you travel to if you were given a time machine?
You know, that's a great question. I would think maybe the 60s, just a smidge, a little bit older than what I was, my age. I'm curious as to how my mom, my dad, their experiences growing up here in KC. It was at a pivotal time where race relations were starting to change and give Black people more opportunities. I kind of giggle because I'm like, I don't know, with my mindset now, I don't think I would be patient or obedient, having been a slave. But I guess the reality is if that's the era that you grew up in, that's what you would do. And so I'm grateful that, they had to go through that in order for me to have what I have. But I think the 60s probably would be a good time just to kind of see what the old, and how they broke into some of the new opportunities and experiences we have now.
Okay, the 60s, I got you. Which word would you use if you could only use one word for the rest of your life? So you get one word for the rest of your life, which word would you use?
Love. That's what comes to mind, love.
Good word.
Everything I do it out of love. I can't imagine going to work without loving what I do. I do it because I love my children and my husband, so I'm providing for them. It's all about love. Yeah.
Okay, I like that. Which would be the smartest animal if they all could talk?
I'm gonna say a turtle, and the reason why I say a turtle is I was reading on Facebook today, a friend of mine's, and she was talking about how a turtle was showing up in a lot of different things that she was experiencing. And she looked up and it was in reference to wisdom. So now I'm curious, I'm gonna have to look that up, a turtle. Because the reality is they are slow and they don't move. So there's something about their movement. They probably see a lot of stuff because a lot of stuff goes by them, while they just moving slow. So
okay.
She was just talking about a turtle today, and I was like, a turtle. So
okay.
Okay.
I did not expect that. Turtle. Okay. A turtle. So what is your biggest screw up in the kitchen?
Screw up?
Yeah. mess up mistake, the biggest one.
Ooh, that looks heavenly. Screw up in the kitchen. I love salmon, and we're having salmon tonight. And
Yes, we are.
I think it's important to know that you can overcook salmon.
Mm-hmm.
And I overcooked it. And my husband was like, "This is dry as can be."
Okay.
And the other thing I'd say is I love fried chicken, but I don't do a good job of it. That's my husband's job. I'll season it, I'll clean it, but he knows how to handle the chicken, because he was like, the one and only time I fried some chicken, he was like, "This is not." It's like, I know it's not your mama's. I'm not your mama. So you could just go ahead and fix that.
Yeah, okay.
And so any fried chicken that comes out of our house is fried by Mr. Randle.
Okay. Well, we're going to see what Chef did. I'm going to take a picture of this.
I need to take a
and
picture.
see. Let me take a picture of
'Cause
this.
it's
This is what
pretty.
we got from Chef. He's going to be up later on. But we're going to see what it is, what it do, and make sure that it is not dry.
It's not going to be dry.
Let's
I
see if
can
it's
see
dry.
it's not going to be dry, and it looks pretty awesome.
So talking about that, what's the weirdest thing you have eaten? The weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
I think everybody who has grown up in a black community knows about some chitlins.
Okay.
And I will still eat some chitlins.
Okay.
And I don't care. Some people like, as you get older, certain foods you're not supposed to eat. I wait till Thanksgiving, have my little small bowl of chitlins. I cannot get past anything that has a head on it. So, like crawfish, like it's looking at me. I can't do that.
Okay. Okay.
Like the little
So
person.
you don't eat smoked whole catfish and nothing like that?
I'll eat the catfish. I'll eat a whole catfish with the head cut
But
off.
you gotta cut the head
Yeah,
off. Okay.
it can't be looking at me.
Okay.
No food can look at me.
So when they put the big pig on the roaster and you
That looks lovely, but by the time it gets to my plate, I don't see a head.
Okay, I got you. All right, I understand. I got one or two more for you. Some of these people are not gonna know some of this, but I gotta ask you, what is your all-time favorite Disney character?
The bee. I just saw Space Jam, so I guess I'm just gonna go with Donald Duck, the new legacy with LeBron James. So
Now,
ain't that Donald Duck?
is Donald
that
Duck
the
Disney? That's more like Warner Brothers, ain't it? That's not Disney.
See now, I can't. That potato. I don't know.
Okay, all right. Well, we was talking about Walt Disney.
So Walt
Snow White,
Disney-
them type of.
So would it be like the Smurfs, or was the Smurfs Disney?
Well, we'll leave you with we'll say your all-time favorite character, cartoon character is
We'll go with that.
Daffy Duck.
Yes.
Okay, we'll
Yep.
go with that.
Yep.
I'll leave it at that.
Or
All right,
Bug, or maybe it's Bugs, because he was the one that would say "bee the bee the bee."
that's all, folks.
Yeah, it might have been
Okay.
Bugs.
All right, last one. I'm trying to see which one of these two I want to ask you, and I think I'm gonna go with this one. Last one. If you could meet anyone in this world today, who would you meet?
Living or dead?
We're going to say dead or alive. If you could meet anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would you meet?
I kind of will say Coretta Scott King.
Okay.
Some might say, well, why wouldn't she say Dr. Martin Luther King? But I think it takes a strong woman to allow her husband to do the work that he did. So I'd be curious, like, what did you have to give up? How did that make you feel? What sustained you to be able to be his wife and stand by him through, a really crucial time in history? I would love to just sit with her. And the other part is she's also a soror of mine. So we'll talk a little bit, I'm sure, about Alpha Kappa Alpha that I'm a member of. But I just think like she just always was regal and thank you. I don't know. She just seems like, she was grace, always. Always presented herself in such grace, and yeah, Coretta Scott King.
Okay, I like it. All right, let's move on now. I don't know about you, but I gotta taste this.
Okay.
And I'm gonna see what this going on. This is Chef George put this together for us today, so I gotta go ahead and at least taste it because it's looking so good over here.
It's looking pretty good.
Man.
What do we have? We have salmon here. We have, is that some kind of shrimp or something, or croquette?
No, I'm gonna have to let him tell you exactly what it is. But I know it's some type of tomatoes and asparagus, and it ain't bad. Chef George getting mic'd up, and he gonna come over here, and he's gonna speak to us and let us know what he has. As he's getting mic'd up and coming over and seeing how things are doing, I gotta ask you, just so they know us before we move forward. So what is it exactly that you do career-wise? What career are you in?
I currently am the principal at Eugene Ware Elementary School here in Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. It's hard to even believe that I'm entering my 19th year in the district, and the time has just flown by. 18 years have flown by. So I'm excited about our fall, this school year. Coming out of the pandemic has been rough, but I think, we're gonna finally get to embrace our children again.
I'm looking forward to that myself, being back in the building. I'm a more hands-on relationship type of person, when you can see.
Yep.
So I'm excited about that. I gotta ask, so what life experiences led you to embark upon a career in education?
Some people see their career as something that they do, and it's another love environment for me. Education kind of took me. It wasn't something that I chose. It certainly chose me. Interestingly, my bachelor's degree is in accounting. I went to Tuskegee University, which is in Tuskegee, Alabama. I brought a little bit symbolism of those golden tigers.
Okay. We're gonna talk about that too.
Yeah, and so I entered the field of corporate finance. I worked as a financial analyst. My goal was to make a whole lot of money, and I got a bug. I don't know. And it ended up, there was a lot of different situations that occurred. One being 9/11, September the 11th, turned my career perspective around. At the time, I had a 2-year-old, one-year-old, I guess, 1-year-old, and I was a single mom working. And then 9/11 happened, and the economy changed. I lost my job. I moved back because I was living in Chicago, and I'm like, what in the world is, this is what I'm supposed to do. And, you go from making good money to making little money. And so it certainly was like, God had a different plan for me. And so when I came back to Kansas City, I got another job working in corporate, got laid off from that. It was like, okay, I guess I'm not supposed to do this corporate thing. I was working on my master's degree in business administration, and I took a job as the high school treasurer at Harmon High School, making pennies. But again, God sustained me because all my bills were paid. I didn't have to worry, as much as I thought, like, oh my God, how am I gonna do this? The Lord sustained me. I was able to pay the bills. Me and my son, Colin, we still functioned. And while I was working at Harmon, they talked about a program called the Fellows. The Fellows program through the school district invites people who have corporate degrees or other degrees that are not education to come in and teach in an urban school in some of the high needs subject areas. So I taught math, obviously, you know, I had an accounting degree. And so my son was 2. When I started teaching, he was 3. Let me take that back. Everything that I do now is like either before or after my son. He ends up being that benchmark that I can tell you what I did before him and after him. He was 3 when I started teaching. I got my master's degree in curriculum and instruction as a part of the fellows program, and I haven't looked back. Like, just keep rocking and rolling. So I guess, yeah, education grabbed me. It was certainly not something that I sought out. So.
Okay. Well, we're going to circle back a little bit with that. I see Chef George has made it up here, so we're going to invite him on out. I'll invite him to come out and talk a little bit about the Urban Kitchen KC. That's what this is brought to us by today from Chef George with the Urban Kitchen KC. So we're going to have the opportunity to speak with him for a second.
This is awesome.
It is good, and she loves salmon too, Chef George.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I'm glad you like that.
Glad to get you here. So, Chef,
Yes.
first, tell us about the dish. We took pictures. We both took pictures.
Okay, awesome.
So the presentation was good. I got to say that. So tell us what this dish is tonight.
Man, it's grilled salmon with roasted Romano tomatoes, a simple classic white wine reduction with pesto, and I've garnished it with a rendition of onions, which is fried leeks. I got this recipe when I was working for Brio Tuscan Grill. I've always liked salmon. I've loved the setup, and I just kind of added that into my repertoire.
But what do you think, Ms. Randle?
It's awesome. I'm like, yeah.
So one of the questions we asked, was asked about any of her mess ups in the kitchen, and she said, salmon she cooked sometime it was too dry. So that was the first test that we had to test with yours. Was it too dry? And it wasn't. So it passed the not dry test.
Yep.
One way you can prepare your salmon at home and not make it dry, if you can cook it in parchment paper. Like, take some parchment paper, put it in whatever vessel that you're going to cook it in, lay that salmon on top of that parchment paper. But you're going to need enough parchment paper so you can kind of fold it in, right? So what we're creating is an oven, which will steam the salmon, right? So we have our salmon, which is our protein. Add whatever aromatics you want to put up in there, citrus, lemon, fresh thyme, fresh bacon, whatever you want, as flavorful as you want that to be. You can also throw some root vegetables in there, carrots, potatoes, right? So you put all of these ingredients in this parchment paper, fold it up, place it in the oven on a low heat, nice and slow. Slow and low is always easy. Just let it do its thing, and your salmon won't be dry. It usually will produce its own. Salmon is a fatty fish anyway, so when you're cooking it, it's going to produce its own liquid, right? And so you don't have to add a whole bunch of liquid. You can probably add a little bit of some fish stock or some vegetable stock to that, but the salmon itself is going to produce a little liquid for you, and so you just kind of let it do its thing. Again, like I said, we're creating an oven, and we're creating a sense of steaming, and that's one way you can prepare your food at home with salmon, and it won't come out so dry.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So
It's a parchment paper.
Yeah, parchment paper.
That's a new one, because I usually just line some aluminum foil, add some lemon pepper on top of the salmon, and then just go and watch it and be like, okay, 10, 15 minutes, watch it again, and then it's like, we're good to go.
Okay, another technique.
Andre gonna be wondering where you got this from. You go home, put that parchment paper.
He was trying to use.
Another technique to keep your food moist I learned this technique when I was working at Houston's down on the Country Club Plaza, because they were really, really big on the preparation of their baby back ribs. So they're in a hotel pan, the ribs are, with whatever liquid was in there and liquid smoke or whatever. So right before they put it in the oven or the Alto sham, they wrap with plastic, right? And then they wrap with aluminum foil. And then it goes into the oven. People think like, wow, man, won't that burn? Won't that melt?
Right.
Not even.
So saran wrap, I could put that's the plastic.
Yep.
With the aluminum.
Yes.
Okay.
And it'll keep it, and again, nice and slow and low on the heat.
Okay.
Slow and low is good.
Yes.
All right. Once we add too much heat, cooks too fast.
Right.
That tends to bring up the temperature, brings out all of the moisture. So slow and low is the way to go. And yeah, that technique is a pretty good technique to keep your product nice and moist.
So, funny story. My son, when they little, you go out to eat. What do kids order? Chicken tenders.
Hamburgers.
All the time.
Hamburgers, right? So my son, because I like salmon, he's 2 and 3 asking for salmon. And people were like, what kid is this? And I'm like, because we eat salmon. We
That's
like
good.
salmon, and really,
And it's good in omega-3s and all of that.
And so when he, went off to college, I said, just buy you a bag of frozen salmon, and then when he knows how to cook
That's awesome.
salmon. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
But it was so funny. Those people would be like, what 3-year-old is asking for salmon? I'm like,
That's awesome.
it's like my uppity kid. I'm sorry.
You didn't think you was gonna come here and get some cooking tips.
I didn't know.
We got some cooking tips with Chef George.
Yes, this is awesome.
Chef,
Thank you so much. Yes.
tell them where they can, where you at, where they can reach you. And
I'm a
if they want a meal like this, produced
Look,
for them.
you want a meal like this, all you need to do is reach out to me at georgesterling84.com. That's my email address. I am currently building my website as well as my brand. The name of my business is The Urban Kitchen, KCK. Homegrown Wyandotte County kid, Northeast. Grew up right off 7th and Quindale, played down on 3rd Street in Juniper Gardens, and I'm just old school. So I just thought that I wanted to have a name that's going to represent where I come from. So The Urban Kitchen, being here in the urban area.
So tell me, is that with what's the lady? Is that Kids in the Kitchen? Are they any connection?
No.
Okay.
I'm my own LLC, and
Okay.
I'm my own thing. But yeah, you can contact me at georgesterling84@gmail.com. I have a team that is currently building my website, working on my advertisement and marketing. I have a business mentor right now, Mr. Ron Woods, who did some work over here in KCK and did some work for the government, VA, as well as the Pentagon, contract work. And because I am a disabled veteran, he is helping me to obtain as much resources as I can.
Good for you.
Because I am a disabled veteran, and trying to obtain all of this resources through SBA, getting me certified as a disabled business entity. And so he has opened my eyes up to some bigger things, because when I was thinking of doing my business, I was thinking small. And I meet this man, and how I met Mr. Woods was his wife was ill. They weren't able to get out, and so they needed someone to come in, prepare their meals for them. So I did that. We sat down, we wrote a menu out together for the whole entire week. I did all the grocery shopping, I prepared, I packaged, I delivered. And so one day, just out of the blue, he began to tell me about what he did. And he worked as a contractor for the VA and the Pentagon. And from there, I asked him, hey, would you like to be my business mentor? Because I feel like I'm stalling. I think I have great product. I think I have great presence. I think I'm a commanding force. I need some help. I feel like I need to get over the hump. Can you help me? And he's like, I need to come out of retirement anyway. I need something to do. So he looked over my stuff, and we sat down and we had a meeting, and he said, Chef George, I just want to let you know that I don't half-heartedly delve into anything. If I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna let you know. If it's a good product, I'm gonna get in. And so I think you have a good product. It's a well enough product to bring me out of retirement to help you. And I almost had tears. I almost shed tears because I was like, okay, I think I'm about to get over the top. So that's where I'm at right now. And I cater. Whatever the event is, I'm capable of catering up to 300. I do private events. I do, my last event was dinner for two for this couple. I go into the home, prepare the meal, make the whole entire house aromatic of everything that I'm cooking. We got candle lights. If there's no music, I'll provide music. And so me and my team, we go in, cook, serve, clean, disappear, and we try to provide a full restaurant experience in your home. So that's what I do.
That's a wonderful niche.
It is.
Come to your house.
I also assist with senior citizens, those that don't like the Meals on Wheels program. This is how I came in contact with Mr. Woods. I prepare meals that are dietary for their needs. They don't like the Meals on Wheels. I don't like it either. Look, there's a place for that. No. There's no place for me with that. All right? So fresh is best. Fresh is always best.
And you got these little sayings, man. Slow and low. Fresh is best. I'm gonna write up these down, man.
It's just stuff you pick up in the kitchen, working in the kitchen. It's just kitchen slang, kitchen terminology. Just working in the environment. It's just jargon. Just like you working in the school. You guys got jargon, so that's my thing, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Sounds great. The Urban Kitchen, KCK. You can reach Chef George at George Sterling 84 at gmail.com.
And you can also contact me at 913-351-7913. Again, that's 913-351-7913.
There we go. All right. So definitely.
Yeah, there will be a call.
Definitely. Okay. And we're definitely elated, hopefully, to have Chef George come back another episode down the road for us again.
Absolutely. It'll be my pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed the food. Please feel free to reach out anytime for whatever dietary need that you may have, a friend of yours might have, one of your relatives might need some assistance with some food and can't, whatever. Here I am. Just give me a call. Homegrown and all of that. It's been my pleasure.
Thank you, Chef.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, man. I'm happy to have Chef George on here, man. He's prepared several meals for us, and I enjoy his cooking. And I got to say, very good to me. I enjoy what he had. I'm going to pour me up a little water. And we're going to keep moving. I'm glad you liked it. I had a little birdie told me something about you liking salmon, so I thought that we would maybe prepare something that has salmon for you.
That birdie did good.
Did good? Okay. All right. So as I move on to this next part, and we're going to keep moving with you, I know you mentioned we're going to talk more about AK, but that's why we draped you in the little pink today and a little green. And then I know you said something, but you see the red over here, and you're kind of like, why is the red close to the pink? But I am a Bulldog from Wyandotte.
I'll give you that.
Born and bred. So, that's why I always have this, just to show true Wyandotte colors for my Bulldog.
I've never known you not to represent anything other than Wyandotte Bulldogs.
Oh, that's it. That's him. Once a Bulldog, always a Bulldog is what they say. All right. So let's just talk a little bit more as we move on. We're going to get back to the career, but we're going to go a little before the career choice in school. Let's talk. So where were you born?
KCK is home. Born and raised right here in the dot. I went to Catholic school.
Okay.
Kindergarten to 12th grade. So that is the path my mother and my father chose. Sometimes I wish it was something different, but it is what it is.
Okay.
And it provided, some resources, some environments that helped me as I got into my adult career path. So I'm a graduate of Bishop Ward High School, and I'm a second generation actually Wardonian, because my mother also graduated from Ward. Several family members, cousins, aunts, which is surprising. Like, people are like, black people went to Bishop Ward. Yeah, lots of black people went to Bishop Ward, but they were still quite the minority. But those families, one thing about Ward, there's lots of families, generational families, and so I went to Bishop Ward, but born and raised right here in the dot.
Okay. So you Wyandotte County, that's great.
Go to church at 8th and Quindale, like all of that, like straight, like, yeah. Still a dot, for real.
Good. I think that's great, because a lot of our listeners and our youth are from Wyandotte County, from here. So for them to get an opportunity to see someone who is born and bred from here, all the way from here, is great. And then also for them to see a little different school path, with the with Ward, and so it's different, because sometimes there's a stigma like, I didn't know black people went to Ward. Right. So it is a stigma. So for them to see that, I think it's great. Also, that you can still be who you are.
It is who I am.
No matter the school choice or where you come. And
I will say, my best friend, she went to Wyandotte, so trust and believe, I wanted to be a Bulldog. All of her friends went to Wyandotte. It was like, but my mother was like, no, you're not going there. Basketball games, I was right up in there at Wyandotte if Ward didn't have something going on. So yeah, it is what it is. I have some love for the Bulldogs, because one of my best friends was quite active. So
okay.
Yep.
Quiet as it kept, most people, they got some type of love for the Bulldogs. Even those who went to Sumner, they got some love for the Bulldogs too.
Well, when you talk about, and I was sitting, my dad went to Sumner High School, and that's such a difference than Sumner Academy.
Okay, correct.
So when we talk about, right, he is a Spartan. So when we talk about that, relationship of Sumner and Ward, or Sumner and Wyandotte, in the 60s, they'll be quick to say Sumner ruled. And I'm like, well, okay, I wasn't in the 60s. I was in the, I came up in the 70s and on. So, what about them Bulldogs? My dad's like, it's all about them Spartans. Okay, Dad.
And I never question, because I understand, because the history that they've gotten and what they represented and what they did for the community was a wonderful thing back then. So you mentioned both your mom and dad, so let's talk just a little bit. Can you describe your relationship with your mom growing up?
My mother is amazing. My parents were, they were married for about 10 years. I was about 5 when they separated. So for the most part, it was just my mom and I. My mother didn't have any more children, so I grew up as an only child. Some people might say spoiled brat. Maybe, I don't know. I just know whether I had a sibling or not, I was blessed. My mother worked hard. She worked multiple jobs to provide for me. My dad, he remarried and had more children. I count them as my brothers and sisters as well, love them dearly. But there's an age gap, and now that we're adults, it's nice to have that relationship, because growing up, they were doing their thing and I was doing mine. But my mother, she's amazing. She still works every day, 40 hours plus, she's in her 70s. My dad, he still works every day. And I'm always asking him, don't you want to retire? And he's like, just give me 2 more years. And he said 2 more years for the last 10 years. And I'm like, okay, you happy, I'm happy. Right. So, yeah.
Okay. So describe the relationship with your dad after the separation.
It wasn't, probably the first couple of years. As I said, my parents separated when I was about 5. It's hard to even think about what that was, because really, honestly, my dad and I didn't really start to have a relationship until I went away to college. Okay. That was about when I started to put in an effort to go and visit with him. But I can remember, 5, 6, 7 years old. He loved to swim. My dad is a fish. If ever there's a pool, he's all in that water. And at one point, he lived in Topeka, Kansas. And I remember as a kid, going and visiting with him in Topeka. And every lunch break, he would come home. Back in the day, you could be 5, 6, 7 and at home by yourself. You probably shouldn't be, but I was a pretty responsible kid. He'd come home on the break, the lunch break, we go in the pool, and then he'd be like, okay, I'm going back to work. And that's what we did. And those are the things that I remember about my dad. Like, he loved to swim. He loved to be in the water. Mm-hmm. But then probably about 8, 9, things just kind of faded, He took on a new family, and so things just kind of faded. And, it's all good. I can't knock any of that, because, it came full circle. I think I'm an educator because of my dad. Okay. He taught at Bishop Ward, interestingly, in the early 70s. But he didn't think he was a good teacher, so he only did it for about 2-3 years. And so he still works in social work. So I think, maybe I'm a teacher because of him. Yeah. Okay.
Talk a little bit about your grandparents.
They were just amazing. My dad's parents, they probably were married for 40, 50 years. I don't know how old they were, but they had 7 kids, and they hung in through and through. Interestingly, my grandmother was an only child. My dad's mom, Janetta, she was an only child. She had 7 kids. So I guess she didn't want to be alone. She, kind of felt like, I want more kids. I don't want them to have that same experience of being by themselves. But they grew up on, my dad and my grandparents' house was on Water Street. So if Chef George was talking about Juniper Gardens down on 3rd Street, well, if you keep going further, the street past first is called Water. And so my dad still owns the property on Water Street. And they were just a great group. They loved Jesus. They loved, their family. They raised all their kids. They raised grandkids. So that's my dad's grandparents. So I guess when I wasn't having a relationship with my dad, my grandparents certainly filled in. Okay. And then my mom's parents, they were great because they were there every day, all day, especially my grandmother. She truly was, when you are a single mom, you have this village that, kind of supports. So my grandmother was always the person who picked us up from school, or when my mother had to work extra jobs, I was at her house. My grandfather, by the time I can really recall, he was disabled. So he wasn't the happiest man growing up, And my mom, on occasion, gets really upset about that because she's like, I wish you had happy memories. And I'm like, I don't have happy memories of Grandpa because he was just angry, And he was angry because he was disabled and not able to do for himself. But I hear great memories from my mom about him, and they both were just family people. They believed in taking care of their village. So they were awesome.
Well, I appreciate you speaking about it. I ask these questions because sometimes our listeners, our students need to know the relationships that people have and the things that they've been through with their family are similar to some with them. The separation of your parents, the disabled grandfather, the different, but you still had a network of people around that helped you push you toward where you are today. So a lot of our listeners, young ones, need to know that you know.
When you asking questions that's gonna bring some emotion, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try not to cry on this camera.
Well, I don't mean to bring too many emotions. That's why I told
It's
you
good,
before.
good emotions, but still.
But it's okay, you know, because then our listeners need to understand that too. So it's okay, and it's okay to cry. That's one thing, I work with, I work with a lot of crying kids. I tell them, man, it's okay. You know, sometimes that's the best thing you need to get it out. So, and it's okay to have emotions and show emotions. So, we talked a little bit about the school. You went to Catholic school, as we're going through. Talk about some of the activities and sports or not sports that you did in school.
So in middle school, I did volleyball, basketball, softball. I was all about the sports. If you know my dad, he loves some basketball.
Loves it.
He loves some basketball. And he was excited, like he's yelling and screaming in the stands at every basketball game. And then I got to 9th grade and I was like, I don't want to play basketball, Dad. And it about broke his heart. But honestly, I was just like, I don't need you yelling and screaming in the stands, coaching from, the stands when I'm supposed to be listening to my coach. And I kind of laughed because I think I'm that down for my kids. So I'm like, I need to tone that down, because I feel like I'm that down. But when I got to high school, I was on, I turned and my dad said, oh, you turned into a girly girl. And I'm like, okay, Dad. So, dance team, honor roll, honor society, peer mediation, I should say, which was, basically, like nowadays, some of the kids might call it kind of like a restorative circle kind of club.
Okay.
But we were like peer mediators. Like we helped talk about issues and how to resolve that. So yeah, that was kind of what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a most influential teacher or someone that?
I think I call myself blessed because I got to go to the same school from kindergarten to 5th,
Okay.
6, 7, 8, went to a different school. 9 to 12, went to a different school. I know that children don't have that experience, and so whoever is that teacher, every year is critical for kids. Every year, because you could be the difference. Because they may be going to a different school next year, and they will be able to remember and hear what Miss Randle said. So interestingly, there's probably 2. I could almost tell you every teacher I had from preschool on up. Which is really funny. I guess because I like school. But Miss Vaughn, Reverend Vaughn, Jack Vaughn's wife, was my preschool teacher. She was amazing. I can remember her, and the love we had. I see her now, and my son always says, you turned into like a big old baby. Like, what in the world just happened? So Miss Vaughn was amazing. Sister Susan was this very stern nun that I had from kindergarten to 5th grade. But she ultimately was my favorite because she just was like, I believe in you. I know you can do. She spanked me because those were the days that they had paddles, and if you didn't do what they said, they'd whoop your butt, and then they send you home and you get whooped again.
Right.
Middle school, kind of no one really particular. I mean, I had some key teachers. And then high school, not necessarily, but I would say that foundation, preschool, kindergarten, just really set me on a pathway of success because they believed. The Catholic school I went to in kindergarten to 5th was predominantly black. I'm not even gonna say predominant. It was all black. There were no white children. I don't recall ever a white child, Hispanic child, in my elementary school. And they just instilled in us, like, you can, you will, we expect. And And again, Sister Susan was a white woman, but she was the principal, and she believed, like, you black child will do, you will be successful, we expect you to be. So yeah, Sister Susan probably would be the person I think most about. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk now. We're leaving high school, and you're making a decision now to college, to attend college. And we talked about Tuskegee. Talk about the choice to go to Tuskegee. So I knew about Tuskegee for a while because my dad, he attended Tuskegee for a little bit. So he's always said that. I took a trip down there to see Tuskegee. So I know, and then some people always said Tuskegee Airmen, you know, so it's always big. But I knew a little bit about Tuskegee from that. So tell me what, tell me how you got to Tuskegee.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, elementary school was all black. So always a historic, you know, our history was always being told to us. I get to middle school and it's more diverse. And I missed that passion about being black and being proud. So then I get to Bishop Ward and, you know, now I'm a minority. And I still was like, are we having a Black History program? Are we doing anything related to Black history? And they were like, nah, we ain't doing that. And I said, well, can I do that? You know, and I think they told me yes because they knew that I came from a family that was generational. So they couldn't dare say no. But that also let me know I miss being around my own. So I applied to Tuskegee. I applied to Southern. For those who are from the area, went to Harmon. Norvin Daniels, who was the band director at Harmon for years, he's a family friend of ours, and he, of course, was like in my ear, "You going to Southern? You going to Southern?" And I went to visit. They laid out the red carpet. It felt like family because I had some, you know, family. Well, I should say I had the Norvin Daniels family that would have taken me on. But it was big. Like Southern was, you know, 10,000 students. It was just big. I went to Tuskegee in Alabama, and everybody, I kid you not, they don't know, you truly are strangers, but they speaking, you know. I'm walking up and down campus, and everybody I walk past was like, hi, and I'm like, who does that? Why are they so friendly? And I just was like, I'm gonna go here, because I feel like it's small enough and big enough. It's about 2 hours from Atlanta. So I had family that lived in Atlanta, so it wasn't like I was just in Alabama, away from family. But really it was like, Ward was good for me because it helped me see a different perspective as a Black person, managing and processing what it means to work with people who don't look like myself. But Tuskegee just was like, I gotta go back to be with my people. And again, I get there and they saying the same thing. You can, you will. It's an expectation. It was the best 4 years. I would do them 4 years over and over and over. They were good 4 years.
Okay.
I came out okay, you know, I did all right. But yeah, it is a country town. So you either like it or you don't, because it's kind of country.
It's a little small. Yeah,
it's a little country.
They think we country, but they country.
Oh my God. Alabama, you know, it's pretty country. And it's, you know, if you ever get to visit Tuskegee, it's about 20 minutes from Auburn University, which is huge, you know, SEC, powerhouse football. You know, that was another culture shock. Going to school in the South, you don't understand, Kansas is about basketball. SEC, all that, they about football. You know, I remember on my first day or two there was a football player that came up, you know, everybody's posturing, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, he's a senior, and he's like, no, I'm 18, and I'm like, nope, like, you're huge. And the football players in Kansas don't look like you, you know, it just, I was blown away. The whole football experience, the whole band experience, we're still in the U.S. of A., but geographically things are different. And it was great. I tell everybody, go to HBCU.
Okay. So for our listeners who don't know what that means, what does HBCU mean?
HBCU means a historically black university or college. At one point, there was, in history, there was well over 150, 175 HBCUs over time. They've closed, consolidated, but Tuskegee was founded by Booker T. Washington. When we talk about economic empowerment, interesting,
Yeah.
he believed that black folks need to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. He had some, he was controversial because, he had a different look and understanding about how black people can make progress. But at the end of the day, he was amazing because he built Tuskegee with his own hands, community of people in Tuskegee. He was a Hampton University alumni. Hampton is another HBCU. It's located in Virginia. And, I could talk all day about Tuskegee because there's lots of history, and they always make you, as a freshman, go into this freshman orientation class and read these books. And I also like history, so that might be another part of it. But, yeah, there's lots to tell about Tuskegee.
So Tuskegee wasn't your first choice?
Yeah, it was.
It was your first choice?
It was, yeah.
Okay, so Southern was someone else's first
Right.
choice that was
Right,
pushing,
right,
but
right.
Tuskegee was your
Right.
choice. So you did go to the school of your choice.
I
then.
did.
Great.
I did. And it was always a question mark as to Tuskegee was more expensive than Southern. And, those individuals who were in my ear about the cost, I was like, well, are you paying for it or am I?
Yes.
And they kind of was like, okay, I'm going to leave you alone. But yeah, Tuskegee, I visited Bradley University, which is in Peoria, Illinois. It was a up-and-coming techie school and, stuff that, back then they had one-to-one devices in the dorm rooms. We talk about these kids with these one-to-one devices in high schools and middle school and elementary. 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm dating myself. Yeah. But but Peoria was a pretty, I'll put it like this. They call it a PWI, which is a predominantly white institution. And it just didn't feel like home. So I had 3 schools on my radar, and I picked Tuskegee.
Tuskegee, okay. So a couple questions about your college. I'm getting to the pink. I'm getting over there. But talk to me about, describe college life. Describe that so our listeners can understand what typical college life is about.
It's about independence. You either want it or you don't. You go to school and you are successful, however that success looks like. And so I will be honest and say, my first semester, I did pretty good academically until finals, and messed up and had my algebra class. I thought it was at 10 o'clock, my final. It was at 8 o'clock. I show up at 10 o'clock, and the professor is like, you were supposed to be here at 8. I was devastated. Like, I think I did everything pretty good this first semester. And that threw me off. But after I came home for the the break, the professor said, I see that you just made a mistake. You can take the final when you come back, blah, blah, blah. But for the most part, I did pretty good, that first semester. Second semester, I did pretty good. And when I say pretty good, in high school, I was a 3.2, 3.4, GPA type student. College, I hovered around a 3, sometimes a little bit less than a 3. But I still feel that, I was pretty successful. There surely were people around me who were very studious, probably more so than I, who were doing the 3, 4, and 5 GPAs. But Tuskegee was just different because, or really college in general, it's an opportunity for you to be independent, and you have to know, yourself. You will quickly learn, like, you are responsible for getting up. You're responsible for studying. You're responsible for planning when you're gonna study. You're responsible for planning when you're gonna party. You're responsible, and your parents kind of they pray. My mother was like, I just pray that you would be safe, and that you would bring home good grades. And for the most part, she was like, you did okay. You know.
So nobody waking you up in the morning telling you it's time to get up.
Nobody's waking you up. No.
Nobody telling you to go home, go to sleep.
Nope.
Those things.
Nope. And I will be honest and say, if you go to historically black college, you don't always have the nicest of things as the predominantly white institutions. So, for example, I lived in Whitehall, which was the oldest dormitory on campus. It was built by the original students of Tuskegee University. It had no air. We're talking about Alabama heat, which is a different kind of heat than the Kansas City heat. It had no air. But I had those fabulous things called box fans that I just put up in the window. That was my air conditioning. And, so those little things were just character. Like, you have to persevere when things aren't quite what you're used to. Yeah, at home I had air and I had heat, running water, all that good stuff. I had running water at Tuskegee too, but the bathroom wasn't, it wasn't masterful. It wasn't masterful, and it was the oldest dormitory on campus. So we talking Tuskegee was founded in 1881.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Whitehall was every bit of 1881, crickety, and old radiator heat. I mean, but I laugh, like, my roommates and others, we all about, like, we're in our own little sorority called Whitehall, just because we know what we endured living in Whitehall.
Gotcha. Now, you brought up sorority. Talk to me about Greek life and pleasure. First, let me ask you this before you tell me about Greek life. What made you pledge, AKA?
I mentioned Norvin Daniel, well, his wife, Linda. As I said, they were family friends, close family friends, church members. Linda was an AK. There's another lady, Linda Hall. For those who are familiar with Reggie Hall, who's a doctor, I see you nodding, so you probably know their kids. So Linda Hall and Linda they were church members of mine, and so I wanted to just epitomize all the things that they do and all the things that they were about. And they were educators. Again, I didn't realize that they planting seeds in me to become an educator too, but they were graceful, they were kind, and I just was like, I want to do that too. I want to be a part of that. I didn't join in undergrad. I joined as a graduate member, and some people don't recognize or understand that in a historically black Greek letter organization, you can become a member after graduating from college. So when I moved back here to Kansas City, I joined Beta Omega, which is chartered out of Kansas City, Missouri. And I've been 22 years. Let me take that back. 22 years a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. AKA has a lot of history in Kansas City. Our founders, one of our founders, Beulah Burke, taught at Sumner High School. There's another founder, and I'm forgetting her name, also was very active in establishing chapters here in Kansas City. So the chapter that I belong to is the second oldest graduate chapter in the history of the sorority. Last year we celebrated 100 years. So there's a lot of AKA history in Kansas City because of our founders. Beulah Burke was from St. Louis, so there's a lot of AKA history in St. Louis. AKA is a real thing, and we rocking and rolling. And of course, our vice president is now Kamala Harris, and we are really excited about, her being another woman of intelligence, high expectations. She's superseding, whatever, the ceiling she's breaking through. And we, of course, hope that more will come. And, I'm not gonna knock Delta, Sigma, Gamma, Rho, Zeta, Phi, Beta. Those are the other Greek-letter organizations. We are a sisterhood, and we support one another in the efforts of service here in the Kansas City community. And I some of my best friends are Deltas or Sigma, Gamma, Rho. So it's all about the work and giving back to your community.
Okay. So for our youth, our audience, before we move on, explain what Greek life is, just explain that just a little bit so they can understand what that is.
Oh my gosh. Whether it's a fraternity or sorority, the premise is around community service.
Okay.
That is really what the premise is around. So we're volunteering as tutors. We're volunteering. One of our programs that we're working on is CAP, which is basically helping young people, high schoolers, be prepared for college applications, getting that college financial aid. So, we're mentoring them in those efforts to prepare for college. Beta Omega also has a debutante ball, and there's some, some people would say there's, it's a ball. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's young ladies who are presented to the community in hopes that they too will aspire to be leaders in our community. They do a waltz, and they have a big ball dress, and it's a big deal. And that's what AKA does. But ultimately, the big part is it's service. That's what you first should be walking in saying, okay, I'm here to work, to be about the work of service. But then, you get to step and be a part of step shows, and you make noise, you ski-wee as an AKA, or you oob as a Delta. I don't know if I should have said that or not, but, there's a sound, and the same thing with the fraternities. They have their various noises and symbols, but it's a network. That's another.
I thought I was going to see you put your mirror up and all that.
No. Today I did bring. This is an old version because I became a member in 1999. So this is a history book when I became a member. As I said, we are now 100 years old, and I've been in 22 years. And we have some new publications of our history book. I just brought some paraphernalia, it's a cute sweater that I wear on occasion. But I also have a bracelet that I wear. I carry it with me, and I carry both. I brought both. I brought Tuskegee and I brought AKA because I will never forget Tuskegee. It certainly grounded me for greatness. So it's my college ring, and of course AKA is just near and dear. I have 3 boys, and so they always laugh like, you go into that girly stuff? And I'm like, I need that girly stuff because I got 3 boys at home. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we went to college, you mentioned it before, but tell us again your major in college.
I got a degree in accounting, my bachelor's degree in accounting. I have a master's in business administration from St. Mary's University, which is in Leavenworth. I have a master's in curriculum and instruction from Pittsburgh State University, which is in Pittsburgh, Kansas. And I have an education specialist degree from UMKC, and that's in administration in order for me to become a principal.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So you kind of hit it before. I'm just going to go back on it because I want to get into the education part of it. But you started in corporate America, working. You talked about 9/11, you know, coming back. And then you started as a treasurer, Harmon. So let's pick it up at Harmon as a treasurer. So now you're a treasurer. So you was a treasurer. You went from treasurer to principal now.
Yes.
So how did that journey go? Like
Yeah.
what moved you from the treasurer's desk?
Right. God. That's really what it is. Because as I mentioned, 9/11 hit and the economy just kind of fell out. Jobs, people were getting laid off. So, and I didn't really know what, because I didn't know what I was going to do next, because I was starting to think maybe this business thing is not what I'm supposed to do. One of the companies I work for, we did a financial literacy program, and I got to go to Quindaro Elementary School as a volunteer and talk about financial literacy and how to balance your checkbook, and I loved it. I look forward every week to going into that building and visiting with those students. Interesting, I go to Quindaro. My youngest sister was not in the class that I was volunteering, but she was in the next class. And you know, people would ask me like, you got the same last name as the girl over there? And I'm like, yeah, that's my little sister. We're 20 years apart. And yeah, my youngest sister and I are 20 years apart. But anyway, so that was where the bug started, was me doing that volunteer efforts. Again, I'm saying AKA was about service. Here was an opportunity for me to provide that from my the company I was working for at the time. And then I got laid off from that company. I got laid off twice. From Xerox was the first one, and then I got laid off from HNTB. Howard Needle.
Close. I almost thought that you were saying HNIC.
And I always have to correct my HNTB. And it's a huge architecture firm here in Kansas City. And when they laid me off, I had a little bit of severance money, and you know, my son was about 3 years old. I was like, okay, maybe I'm supposed to do something else. And I didn't know what that was. And I had enough money that, as I said, you know, God sustained me. So I said, well, let me go work at the high school as a treasurer. I can do that, you know, I can do that. I kept working on my master's degree in business, and I kept saying, oh, no, I'm going to go back in the corporate world. And the principal, I forget his name, he's a little short Hispanic man. He said,
Rios?
You would No, it wasn't Rios. Because Mr.
Okay.
Rios was at Argentine.
Okay.
No, it's another little guy. I can't remember his name. But he's like, you would be great teacher. And he said it because I wasn't afraid of kids. Like, they would come in and give me a hard time, and I give it right back to them. And he said, I need you to be a sub because you don't have a problem having a conversation with kids. And I was like, okay. I also met my husband at Harmon. He was a para. He worked in the life skills classroom, which are students who have some pretty severe handicaps. So I think, you know, I guess I was supposed to be at Harmon. That was the time I was supposed to be there. And he had a heart of gold because, you know, the children, he expected nothing but the best from those who you would think don't have much. Those kiddos had so much personality. They were pretty hilarious. So I applied to the fellows program. Again, Mr. Daniels he was in my ear like, yep, you need to do that too, Monica. And the district at the time paid for that master's degree. And that was probably the biggest selling feature. Like, oh, you're gonna pay for my education? I can do that. You're gonna pay for the education and you're gonna pay me to teach. I can do that. And I applied, went through a pretty rigorous interview process. I've grown up a couple places, I'll say that. My mom, you know, she's single mom, so we moved a little bit around the Northeast area. And at one point, I lived in the townhouses across from Quindaro Elementary School. And I never went outside to play because I was afraid of the kids. Like, I was like, they're going to tease me because I go to a Catholic school, or they're just going to give me a hard time. So I seldom ever went outside. My god brother went to Northwest, and he had some struggles. And we would have to go and visit and help and support because he was going through his struggles. And then the summer, we have a summer institute. It's several months where we learn teaching techniques and how to plan. And that summer, it was at Northwest. And I was afraid of Northwest Middle School. I was afraid, like, these kids are rough. I'm not going to be able to do it. OMG. And, but I came away from that telling my mom, they're going to assign me to Northwest Middle School. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, because God is going to make me face my fear and be productive and give those kids everything I got. And when it was time to hand out our job placements, Ms. Lori Boyd, who was over the fellows program, she said, well, Monica, are you interested in your placement? I was like, wherever I go, it's gonna be okay. And she's like, really? You're not worried? I was like, nope. And she said, you're not worried about your placement? I said, no, Ms. Boyd, I'm not worried. I said, because I think I'm gonna be right here. And she was like, yeah, you're gonna be right here at Northwest Middle School. And I was like, see, I already just kind of knew it. That was the best 5 years. You know, when I talk about going back to college and doing 4 years all over again, I would teach at Northwest Middle School all over again. Those were the best 5 years. Under her leadership.
She's a good leader.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from her too.
It was just like, it was seamless. Like, there was one kid that I was afraid of, Okay. And I learned real quick how to massage her. You know, I massaged her. I had a whole lot of tasks that I gave her. I called home a lot. And then after a month of school, she kind of calmed down because she was running it. That little girl was running my classroom. And I was like, no. You cannot run this room. But I would do Northwest Middle School over any and every time. So Northwest, then I went to Arrowhead for a couple of years. I became an instructional coach. So that's someone who helps teachers get better. And then I was an assistant principal at New Chelsea Elementary School. I'm back in the Northeast area.
So you didn't want to mention the Arrowhead?
I did. I said Arrowhead. I said I left Northwest.
But you just blew past. I couldn't let you just blow past. I couldn't let you blow past that. I couldn't just let you smooth past.
I taught. I was at Arrowhead 6 years, 7 years. Yeah. Arrowhead was good. Yes, Coach Mo. Yes, Arrowhead was good.
Those who don't know, that's where I met you.
Yes.
I met you at Arrowhead. We worked together.
Yes.
So that's why I brought that.
Yeah. And then I became an assistant principal, and I was at New Chelsea Elementary. Those were great years in New Chelsea. And then I was at Hazel Grove for a year, and now, you know, I'm at Eugene Ware. This fall will be my 5th year as the principal.
Okay. So tell me something. What advice would you give someone who is pursuing a career in education, in public education?
Don't be afraid that the kids will break your heart, because they will.
That was a rough one.
Yeah.
I know.
They will break your heart. They'll give you everything they got.
But they will break your heart. I have one. I've experienced that.
And I see it from a good place. Like, they will break your heart because you will put so much in them, and they won't know how to accept that.
Right.
They won't know because they haven't been taught how to accept that.
Correct.
They will shine and they'll grow up, and you'll be like, you were crazy in middle school, and now you have these children. So it's really neat to see my children, my students, have their kids, and I'm like, okay, I'm doing better than what I did, Miss Randle. Okay, that's all I'm talking about. But be willing to be your authentic self, because they read through all of that, and I'm gonna be honest with you, it's called BS. They read through that, so be honest with them. If you don't know, you don't know.
I say this all the time. Kids have the best BS meter in the world. They know who's genuine, who's not. So just be yourself. You're right.
Be yourself. And just be willing to, not have a whole lot of money sometimes, because you're going to give your last dime to them when you know they really need it. And you're gonna meet great people who are in the same profession, doing the same work, wanting the same best for the kids. 20 years in, I should say 19 years, and hey, it's the best job every day. Yeah.
Okay. So, can you share a story with us? We wrapping it up. We're getting kind of to the end. But can you share a story with us of a lesson that that was taught to you by one of your youth?
My students?
Yeah. Because I know one thing for me, so I always ask someone else this. People don't think that when you're in education that you're learning too. And sometimes your students or your players are the ones who taught you some lessons and things that you pick up. So I like to ask all the time when educate, like, you got a story of a lesson that you were taught by one of your youth?
There's a lot of stories. You can't be a good educator if you don't have a whole lot of stories.
You wasn't doing something right if you ain't doing it.
It's like, if you don't have a whole lot of stories. Wow. One thing that I learned, I taught math. I didn't know what it meant to be illiterate until I had non-English speakers in my room. Sometimes, we'd be like, oh, he can't read. I just couldn't envision a black child not being able to read. It just didn't dawn on me. But it clicked when I had a non-English speaking child show up in my room one day, and I gave him a book in Spanish. I'm like, okay, well, he can read that. I know we got this language barrier thing going on, but he can read it in Spanish, and then we can do this work. He couldn't read it in Spanish. That's when it clicked for me what it meant to be illiterate in English. So that was jarring to me. There were many times that there was a couple times we adopted families at Christmas, and it was out of my own pocket, and to see the smiles on those kids' faces when they had something to open on Christmas, it was like, I did that, and I didn't, it was nothing. It was like, okay, I'll just do it, and God's gonna take care and provide for my own. He'll figure it out, because these clearly don't have. And so those relationships, to hear those kids now with their families and being successful, made it all the best. I was supposed to do that. But then there's also I have a little boy who now attends Eugene, Ware, and his dad was one of my students. And I remember he would stay after school all the time. And I was like, you really got this. You really got this. And but he stayed after school all the time. So much so that his mom accused me of having something inappropriate. I was like, whoa. Nope. And so I had to talk to the principal, talk to the PE teacher. And really, unfortunately, what I learned was he was trying to find a safe place for himself between the hours of 3 and 5 because his mom would get home around 5:30. So if he left the school at 5, it was enough time, but it was a safe place for him to be for those 2 hours. And so once we understood what that was about, he still came after school. You know, whatever it was, if he needed help with his math, we finished that. If he needed help with English, the English teacher down the hall made a point. If he was done with all that, we sent him to the gym to work and, you know, shoot hoops or whatnot with the PE teacher. Like, we just had to figure out what it was. You know, kids will tell you, I'm fine, but the reality is they're not, you know. And fortunately, he wasn't showing any aggressive behavior. It just was like he was just around. We was like, dude, go home, you know. So, you know, sometimes when they say they fine, they not, but they don't really, again, know how to articulate or trust you to tell you really what's going on. But then you got to be willing to do something with that and not just send them home, because he's clearly telling you, I don't want to be home before 5 o'clock. I'm going to just be wandering the streets from 3 to 5. And so, you know, outreach of programs and things, because the kids ain't going to always tell you. You know, their actions will tell you something's wrong, but they're not going to say, I don't have nothing to do and I don't feel safe going home, you know. And so I always just ask more questions, you know, or I notice you're doing, you know, too many. It's relationships, yeah, it's relationships. But trust, there's plenty stories.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we get into our last couple questions. Before we do, one of them is, I know that they just came back and they, I've heard that going back into school, we're required to wear masks. The students are required to wear masks when we go in. So we wanted to make you a gift of one of our Jegna Klub masks.
Very good.
So we wanted to make sure that we gave you that.
All right, very good.
For today.
You know, I'll coordinate, you know, as you
I
can
understand.
see.
I understand that it has red in it, but once again, I always represent my Bulldogs, and that's where we get the red from.
I got you.
Jegna Klub. Okay, all right. We get into our last two questions with three questions. I want to know, what is the biggest difference between being a classroom teacher and being a principal? What's the biggest difference for you?
You know, going through the classes, they would talk about influence. And I'm like, how can a principal have a higher level of influence than a teacher? And the way they explained it is, as a principal, I get to hire the teacher who's going to influence that child's life for the rest of their lives. So I'm responsible. I have 15 classrooms at Eugene Ware. I'm responsible for those 15 teachers to do their very best to influence the 300 kids at our building. I'm responsible for 300 kids. A classroom teacher is responsible for 25. I'm not knocking. I'm not saying that they're any less than what I do, because we certainly need teachers. We need good teachers. But I too was kind of like, well, you know, other than the money, like, why? And they were like, do you know how many more children you can influence? You know, maybe not as much of a close relationship, but if you can put the right person in front of them, then they're gonna be the best that they'll be in 20 years. So I don't take it lightly when I hire a teacher. I try to actually put them through a very similar process that I went through to become an educator. I asked them to teach a lesson so I can see how they interact with kids. Like, it's not just me and you having a conversation and then I go, oh, okay, I think they're gonna. No, I do ask them to come back, or I even ask them to prepare to teach a lesson while they're in the building that day. Obviously, COVID this year, I wasn't able to do that. But the previous 3 years that I have been the principal, I was able to do that. And it's quite telling when people get in front of kids if they can do it. It'll quickly show whether they have it in them or not. And really, it'll show if they're comfortable with children of color or not. So.
Okay, I understand. I like that. Able to influence more because you are influencing. You have the say over who is actually influencing in each of the classrooms, and instead of one classroom, you got 15 classrooms that you're responsible for.
Yes.
I like that. There's similar thing about coaching. They ask me, you coaching? I love coaching. You know that. I love coaching. I love being on the sideline. But with the Jegna Klub, I'm able to influence more than just one team.
Right.
I'm able to influence more in the community. And so I get it. I understand it. Big difference. I like it. I end every show with a question. Same question. You talked about football in the SEC. Okay? So you know a little bit about football.
Yes, sir.
And I know you watch a few football games.
Yes, sir.
All right. So Super Bowl is coming up. We're going to say our Chiefs are in this summer Super Bowl. We're watching the Super Bowl. We're there. And they say, hey, Monica Randle, you have just been chosen for a 60-second halftime commercial. Now, you can't sell it. You can't sell it to anyone. You just have to give this commercial. Either you're going to leave your legacy or something with people, or you're going to give some message, whatever you're going to do. What would you use that 60 seconds for? You don't have time to go home and think about it because your 60 seconds is about to start in 3, 2, 1.
Wow. So you asked a question about what was the key word earlier, and I said love. And so I probably would just say, as a black woman, educated black woman coming from Kansas City, I love what I do. And if you don't love what you do, I really encourage you to find what you love and do it well. Chef George talked about he loves to cook. He's finding his passion. He's making it happen. He will be successful. It will provide for him. So I would talk about, love what you do, and be okay to know that you're going to stop and start and stop and start a couple times before you find what you love. So that would be, and I would say that to, old and young alike. You 16, 18 years old going into college, and you say, I'm going to be an accountant, like I said. 5 years in, I had to start, do something else, So I wasn't afraid of that because I recognized I wasn't loving it. I can look back now and go like, I wasn't really loving that, but I love tutoring, So there was always, so pay attention to the messages that you're getting from your friends and family and strangers. Listen to that. Be quiet and listen. But love, key part is, it ain't just about the agape love and, loving a man or loving a woman. It's about, loving yourself and being okay that, that didn't work. I failed at that. I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep moving because I didn't like doing that. But maybe my message would be about, what do you love? And be mindful of that, and then that will lead your passion. What do you love?
Love. Let love lead your passion.
Love lead your passion. Yeah.
I like that.
I like that.
I like that. Well, I appreciate you coming this evening, being with us. It was a pleasure. Our title, once again, was I Am What I Choose to Become. I chose that one because I believe you are, for all our young ones, but especially our young women out there, our young girls, they need to see that women can choose what they become. And you can be that. And it doesn't mean you may start in one way, and then it may evolve to something else, and it's okay with it. Yeah. And I think that's it. So I very much appreciate you. I appreciate Chef George for coming with his Urban Kitchen KCK in our meal this evening. And this is the Evening Social Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
What's going on, good people? For those of you who may not know me, my name is Chris Dunlap, and I would like to welcome you and thank you for joining me on this segment of Red Pill, where my purpose is to give you financial tips to help you decode the matrix. I am offering you the truth, nothing more but the truth. What you do with it is up to you. Today's topic we're going to be talking about is savings. And all savings is the action of allocating a certain portion of everything that you earn to an account that you're not going to touch for a while. If you're a teen listening to us today, you're doing a side job, you have a summer job, all savings is when you earn some money, put a little bit away that you're not going to touch, that you're not going to spend, so you can start stacking up your bag. That could be in a shoebox, it could be under the mattress, or you could give it to your parents to manage it for you. For adults, we have a few other options that we can look into. Right? You have your banks that have checking versus savings accounts, so you can allocate some of your money over to your savings that you don't touch. There's credit unions, there's CDs, there's money markets and things of that nature if you want to earn a little bit of interest. I would recommend talking to a branch manager at your bank to look at the different options that you have. Also, our employers are making it a lot easier for us to save because we can take portions or percentages of our earned income and have it automatically put into a savings account that we never see, that we never touch. Just one day you wake up and look and you have a nice little nest egg. Some people may ask, how much should I save? How much should I put away? It's really up to you, but the purpose of savings in most cases is for you to have an emergency fund in case anything is to ever happen, whether it's a car breaking down, whether it's a loss of income, you have some money that you can reach back into before running into credit utilization. For most people, they say 3 to 6 months of your current earned income. So if you're making $2,000 a month, that means in 3 months that would be $6,000. For 6 months, that would be $12,000. So you want to start putting away small allocations of each check until your savings account gets up to about $6,000 to $12,000. Again, just in case of any emergencies, you have money that you can pull back into before you have to look at using credit cards. We'll get into that in later segments. Thank you again for before you have to start using credit cards. And we'll talk more about using credit cards to your advantage and not your detriment in later segments. Again, thank you for joining me for this edition of The Red Pill, where all I do is give you financial tips to help you decode the matrix, offering you truth, nothing but the truth. What you do with it is up to you.